Alright, so welcome back again. So in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, I'll be trying to see how to build a very simple API using Django Ninja. So now Django Ninja is another alternative to Django REST framework and also fast API that allows you to be able to build REST APIs. So let's see how to use Django Ninja to build a very simple application. So by the end of this tutorial, I'm trying to see how to use it to build a hospital API in which we can have the get, we can read, we can patch, we can delete and upload and the rest. So let's start from scratch. So this is the API we're trying to build, and also have some authorization here. So I'll go back again and then we start writing everything from scratch. So I'll go back to my terminal, which is here. Then inside my terminal, I've just created a virtual environment, so I can deactivate. And then I just created a virtual environment, so virtual env vnv, right? That's what I did. And I got my virtual environment already created. So if I come back here, you see that I have my VNV, and then let's activate it. Activate, and then I'll just go with pip install Django, because that's to be using for our application, and then Django Ninja, right? And then we may also want to load the data, but let's go straight away with this. So I've already installed them. So we are using Django 5.0, and then Django Ninja is 1.2, right? Okay, so let's start our project. So I'll just go back here inside the same location. I'm going to make a directory called hospitals project. I'll move into hospitals project, and then I'm just going to go with Django admin I'll call it start project. I'll give the name of the project as core project. It can be any name, but I just call it as core project. Then I'll move into my core project, as you can see from here. Then I'll go with the manage.py. Then I'll start an app, and I'll call it as hospitals. So I can have multiple apps in one project. Perfect. So let's open this one with Pycharm. You can also use VS Code. Come back here, and then I'm going to open it with Pycharm. So let's open it. And it is found inside my apps. Not this one, this is the old one. Apps here inside this place. That's what I'm going to run. Then I'll open it. So this window is going to open, and it's going to identify my virtual env, and then we will be able to see it working, right? Okay, so let's see how it is. So inside my core project is my main project, in which I have my settings, and inside here, the first thing I will do is that I will have to add my packages that I'll be using. So I'll add my local package. This is the local package. That is the name of the package, which is my or local app. I can call it as app, which is my hospitals, the one I created. So hospitals, right? That is what we use. And then in case we want to add the third-party package like Ninja, we also add it there later. So that is all we need, right? So this is it. This hospital is referred to here. So I'll close this, and then I'll go back to my hospitals, my URLs, and I need to include the application itself there. It's going to be part. Then I'll just go with this option here, include, and then this will take in the hospitals.urls. So we have to create this URLs file, right? And I need to import include from Django. And we need to create these URLs to connect our application. So I'll go back into my hospitals here, and then inside here I'll create another file, which is going to be URLs. So urls.py, right? And that is where we will be linking our application. So let me copy this and then paste it here. Then I'll take off the include, and I'll take off this one. Right, so this is going to be our basic app. So the first one, and then I'll just give it a name. So we call that views dot index view. I'll give it a name. Now I'll call it as, let's say, homepage or something. And we need to create this particular function, so I have to import it. So from dot import views, then this views is referring to my views file here, and inside there I'll create my basic template. So index view, which takes in the request, and then I'll just specify the context, which in this case we will just specify the title of the page, and then we call it as hospitals API, right? Something like that. And then return render, and then I'll pass in my index, that is the template. So first I'll pass in the request because I'm passing in some data via request, then the template, which is going to be my index.html, and then the context. So I need to create this index.html. So I'll come down to my directory here, the app itself, and I'll create a new directory called template. Then inside template, I need to create my index.html file. It's going to be index.html, right? And then I can now put a simple div, then I'll put an h2 tag, and I'll put in my Ninja stuff. This is just to test to see if the application is working as expected, right? So this here is format is what I'm going to be using for the other ones, right? So perfect. So let's see if the application works now. Now to run this application, there is two ways. I can come down to my terminal and just activate the terminal, and I can run it like this. So the same location with the core project where the manage.py is. This I'll just run Python manage.py, then run server. If I run server, if everything is working, we should get this URL, and I can open it with Chrome. And you can see that we have the hospitals API, which is exactly what was, let's close this. The hospitals API is exactly what we saw in our index.html here, right? This thing here, which we passed perfectly. Okay, so everything is working. Now let's see how to build the endpoint, right? The API. So we want to build that one. So how do we do that? So I'll just go back again to here, right? So we have my view, everything is working. We will not use it for now. Perfect. So let's work on the API. So first we need our database, because we want to store the data somewhere inside the database. So we need to build a structure for the database here. So I'll just go back again to my models, and I'm going to create my structure. So the data that we are using for application is like this. To show you how the data looks like is here. This is the previous one, so this is the data. Okay, so this is how the data is, right? So we have my facilities, and then the district, the hospital, and the website. So we want to build a model structure to simulate this, to be able to store this particular data, right? That is what you're trying to do. So I'll go back here, and then I will create my structure, which is going to be my class. Now I'll call it as hospital. Then I'll pass in my models.model from Django. And then I'll just specify the facility. So what I'll do is that instead of going it with this option here, I will use the normal Python standard, right? This is not the Python standard. The Python standard is supposed to be camel case, oh no, snake case. So facility bed, right? And then we just specify the model. So I've already prepared this, so I'll just copy and paste to make it simple. So this is it, right? So this is our structure that you'll be using, and then I will go back to my admin to include it inside my admin. So it's going to be from .models, import my hospital model. Then I'll just go to admin.site.register to be able to use it inside my admin page. Perfect. So once we are done with it, we have created our model structure, which is this one. Everything is working as expected. The next thing we need to do is to migrate, right? So what I'll do is that I'll stop this from here, and I want to automatically migrate. So it's going to be Python manage.py make migrations, And then you can see from here now, it's going to make a migration file. If I open it, you can see my initial migration that creates a model. The name of the model is hospital, and then the different fields, right, which we specified here. Okay, so once that is done, we want to also be able to convert this model into SQL to create my structure inside the database, right, the table and everything. So to do that, we just go with python manage.py, then migrate. Migrate, you said that's migrated all of this and applied all of these things there. So these are coming from Django. You can see that that's migrated everything. Perfect. So let's move out from here and then let's build our API, right? So I'll go back again to my application and I'm going to create another file. I'm going to create two files. The first one is going to be my API.py, right? So I'll put my code, and the other one is going to be my schema. So the schema is similar to your serializers, so I'll call it as schemas, right? So these are the two ones. So we have my API and you have my schemas, right? So a schema in Django Ninja is similar to serializer, right? So we'll try and see how to work with it. So first, I'll come back again to my schema and I'm going to create my schema. So from Ninja, import my schema, right? So this is used to create a basic schema. There is also ModelSchema and there's also FilterSchema, which will work on it. So from .models, import my hospital model, then I'll create my schema, right? So class is going to be my hospital schema, and then this is similar, as I said, this one is similar to a model to serializers, right? And then model serializer in Django, right, in something like Django REST framework. So I'll just pass here my model schema, which is similar to model serializer, and then I need to specify the class meta. So in case you're coming from Django REST framework, it's very similar. Then I'll specify the model that I want to use, which in this case is the hospital model. Then I can also specify the fields. So the fields I want to show is, I want to show the ID, I want to show the facility, bed, and the rest, right? So all the fields that are found here, these fields is what I want to also show here, right? So the ID comes by automatically. So this is how to create a simple schema that is going to be used to serialize your data, right? Perfect. So let's use this schema within our API. So I'll come back here to my API, and then I would now, since I already have my schema and my model, I will just build my API. So it's going to be from Ninja, right? We want to import Ninja API. That is all that we need, right? Perfect. Then we need to initialize our application. We do that by going with, let's say you can call it as app, you can call it as API, Ninja API, and then I'll pass in, that is all, right? So something like this. So you could see that we have a lot of things we could modify, right? We could specify the title, we could specify the description, and then the rest, which we'll explore later. And then I will now create my first endpoint. So we are following this approach of create, read, update, delete. So first, let's create our endpoint. So I'll just go with my decorator dot post, right? That is the method to use, and then post will take in the endpoint, right? So I'll call that hospitals. We want to be able to post something to the hospitals, right? Then I'll just define my endpoint, so create hospitals, and then I'll pass in, let's go create hospital, and then I'll pass in my request, and I'll pass in the payload. So the payload here is the schema that will be used to serialize, right? So I'll call this hospitals schema, and I need to import this hospital schema from this schemas here that we have. This hospital schema is what I'm importing. So from dot schema, import hospital schema, right? And this is what we use to serialize. Then I can now specify hospital. Let's go to hospital. I need to use Django, so now I'm still going with, so from .models import hospital, right? Then I need to actually create it, so hospital dot object dot create. Then I will unpack the hotel schema, which is going to be the payload dot date. So as you can see, the reason we could do dot date is that if I go back to here and I double click on this, you can see that this model schema is coming from schema, and schema is based on base model, which is based on Pydentic, right? As you can see from here, this is Pydentic. So that's why we could do dot dict, right? We could do the dot dict, right? Because it's coming from Pydentic. Then after everything is done, I'll just go with return. Then I can first return the ID, right? So let's return hospital.id. If I save it, now let's see if this application is working. So this is the create endpoint. Now to be able to generate the swagger and everything, Django Ninja already does that one for you. So let's run it. So I'll just come back here to make our work easy. I'll go to the file, create my Python file, then I'll call it as run server. Then I'll specify the script. So I have to pick the manage.py that we used in our terminal. So this is the settings, so I don't need to be typing it again. Then I'll just go with my run server. Then I'll specify the working directory, which is here, right? So open, and then apply. Okay, so now I can run this, and if everything works, you see that it has started my application here, right? So perfect. So everything is working. Now I want to show the swagger, so I'll go back again to my URLs, right? So I have my URLs here. Then inside here, I'll specify the endpoints, right? I mean, I'll specify how I want to see the endpoint, right? So here, the simple way, the default is just go back here, then from .api, right? Import app. So this app here refers to the app from here, this particular app, right? And this app comes with a method which is the API, right? It will automatically create all the API for you. So API, it's going to be my path. Then I'll specify I want it to be API, and then I'll just go with my app.url. So as you can see, there are so many things. The post URL, but that's what we're using, this property. It automatically constructs it for us. So it's going to construct the ginger and the swagger. So if I come back here and I move to, let's open it. I just go to API and I go to docs. Now I see that that's generated our swagger for us. And then if I click on this, you can see automatically it uses the schema that we define to give us this option in which we can specify the data that you want to save, right? So I'll just take off the ID because we don't need ID. We want the ID to be automatically generated. And in case we want to modify this, we can come back again and then modify it here by specifying that title. And I'll call it as a hospital, right? API. If I save it and I refresh, now it's hospital API. In case I want to change the version, I can also specify the version that I want to change. So let's say it's the 1.0.1. If I save it and I refresh, 1.01. So you can actually modify it as you wish, right? So there are a lot of things you can do inside this field, right? So all of this, you can specify the description, the open API URL in case you want to specify where it is. You can change the docs in case you don't want to be docs, you want to be something else. You can also change it, and the rest, right? Okay. So let's go back again to our schema, and we want to take off the ID. We don't want to show the ID, right? And I'll save it. Then it's going to be changed. Perfect. So we have created our create endpoint. We need read and then update. So first of all, let's go back again and test and see if it's working. So I come back here, try it. Then let's give it some name. So hospital bed is not available. The district, you can give it any district, so we can call it as, let's say, Kumasi. And then the hospital can be cut, can be any hospital. And then we can also give the URL, which is going to be as we wish it to be. Right, so perfect. So we can just we can just say cat.org, and then we can specify the city, right, or town. It can be any name. So now if I go back here and I click on the execute, we set the information was sent and we got the ID 1, right? Perfect. But in case we don't want to get the ID, we want to get the actual data, we can now return a response by coming back here and specifying the response, right? And then inside the response I can specify my schema, so hospital schema, and now I can now return just the hospital, and this will automatically format it, right? Perfect. So let's work on the get method. How do you get our data? So we want to create a read endpoint for this, right, to retrieve the data. So to just go it here. So app.get, you're using HTTP methods. I'll specify the hospitals. We have read all, so let's go with the read all. And then the response I want to go is now going to be a list of all of them, right? So list, and then I'll pass in my hospital schema. And we will need to use typing. So from typing, import list, right, to get a list of all of them. Then I can just go with my def. So read hospitals. We want to read all of them. So then this is going to be my request. Or instead of calling to read hospital, let's call that list hospital. List hospitals, and that's all. Then I'll just go with my hospitals. Then hospitals dot object dot all, right? We want to return everything. Then I can now return my hospitals. Because you have specified a list here, it will automatically serialize all of them, right? If I refresh it, we have it here, and now if I click on try it out, we have the list of the data, right? So in the next session we'll try and see and work on the other aspect. See you. All right, so now everything is working. So let's start from where we ended. Yeah, so we are trying to see how to add read all and then read one also. So we have seen how to add the read all. Now let's see how to add another one to be able to read. So app.get, and it's going to be a simple one in which we specify the hospitals, and then we want to be able to also specify the hospital ID, right? Hospital ID that we want to read, and then we can now return a response which is going to be the hospital, right, which is the schema. So hospital schema. Then let's call it as read hospital, and then I'll pass in my request, and here we will pass in the hospital ID, which in this case is going to be an integer, and then we can now use, we can now read it as get object or 44. Then I'll pass in the object I want to get, which is hospital, and then the ID, right? So ID is going to, or it can be PK, hospital ID. Then now I can return what is coming. So because you are specifying the response in this particular schema, is going to be serialized, and I need to also import this one from Django shortcut, and now I have it here. So if I refresh, we have the 3 endpoints. So one to create, one to list all and one to read one. So I pass in one here, and then I execute. If I execute it here, you can see that we have it here, right? Because everything is working as expected. Okay, so let's move on from here and then add the next endpoint. We have seen how to do read. Now let's see how to do update and delete. Okay, so to do update and delete, we can simply, or in case you also want to do the update, it's going to be def update, and then to update hospital, we will need the request. You need the hospital specific hospital ID we want to update. That's the first thing, and then we also need to get the payload, right? What data we want to specify. So payload, which in this case the payload is going to be the hospital schema, right? And then I will work here, and then to update, I'll just first of all get the hospital, a single object, so it's going to be the same thing. So get object of 44, I'll pass in the hospital, and then I'll get the ID, which is going to be my ID, right? Perfect. So after you have gotten it, we will now update. So we can simply do it for attribute and then value in the payload dot detect. Then I can just go with dot items. Then I can set attribute. So set attribute, it takes the object, which is going to be my hospital object, and then the attribute and then the value, right? This is the simplest way to iterate through them. Then I'll now save the data. So apologies if the audio has changed a little, and I can now return the hospital. So this is how to actually change the data, right? So perfect. So everything is working as expected. Then we need to add the endpoints, the creator. So app.patch. We are not using put. You want to do a partial update. You can also use full update with put, but hospitals. Then I'll specify the ID. That is all, right? And then we need to specify the response that you want to get. So I can just go with my hospital schema. So I save it and I refresh it. Now we have an additional endpoint added. So we have the patch, and I can pass in the ID here. So if I pass in one, or let's create another hospital. So I'll create another one here. So let's call this one as so available, and then I'll pass in the hospital. So let's go to New York. I don't know whether New York is a district, and I'll call it as New York General, right? Then the website is New York General, something like that, .com, and then the city can be New York, something like this. So this is going to create another one. I can now change it from New York to New Jersey, then something, just add more data to it. Something like this, and this will be in New Jersey, right? So that we have at least 3 different ones. So I have created it in case I want to update this data. So if I go back to my hospital list and then I check it out, you can see that I have the 3 of them in case I want to change one. So let's say I want to change the second one or the third one from new, which is this data here. I can actually do this. I can copy this and then modify it, right? In theory, that is how you may modify it, and this is patch, so it will work. Now paste this data here, change New Jersey General Hospital to hospital, and now I will now modify it, right? So I go with execute. If everything works, you can see that the change has happened. So new JC Hospital. So the update that goes with patch or put is working. It was able to update our data, right? And insert new data there. Okay. So that is for the patch update. Let's go with the delete. So delete is going to be my app.delete, and then it takes in delete can also be get, right? So you can actually specify that you want to delete something. So delete, and you specify the endpoint, so hospitals. Then I'll pass in the ID, what I want to delete, hospital ID. And then the response, I just leave the response without anything, and then just go with this. So def delete hospital. It takes in the request, it takes in the hospital ID, which is going to be integer, and that is all, right? We don't take a payload, we just need the ID. And then in case I want to delete, we can first of all get the data like this, and after I've gotten the data, we can now delete it. So it can be hospital.delete, right? And that's all. Then I can return, let's say true or okay, right? Or true, that it has been deleted, something like that. So this is one way you can delete it. So if I come back here, in case I want to delete number 3, let's refresh to see it. We have the delete endpoint. In case I want to delete number 3, if I go with 3, if it's there, so it has deleted it, 200, okay, and now true. So that means that it has successfully deleted it. If I go back and I check it from here, it is not available, right? You're going to get 404, right? So we got 404 not available. So perfect. So everything is working as expected, right? Very cool. Now let's move on from the CRUD method and add one more. So in case I want to add a search feature, so it's going to be def, then search. Let me bring it down so you can see it well. You have the search hospital. I want to be able to search a hospital, so I'll go with the request, and then I can specify that I want to search maybe within multiple fields, right? So what I want to do now is something like this. So I want to do a get method that goes to this particular endpoint, so hospitals, and then let's say search. Then I can do something like this. Say query a particular place, so let's say the town, so it can be, let's say Berlin or something, right? And then it's going to fetch that particular data. So how do we do such an endpoint like this, right? That's what we want to do. So what we will do is that we just come down here and let me create the decorator. So app.get, I'll pass in the same thing we do all the time. So I'll pass in the hospital, then I'll pass in my search here, and then I need to specify the response. Most of the time when you're searching for a list, right? You're searching within a list of data because it can be multiple. I pass in my serializer or my schema. Then I can just give my query, which is going to be a string, right? So this query here is this particular term here. Perfect. And now I can just go like hospitals. It's going to be my hospital dot filter dot object dot filter. Then I can use because I want to search across multiple fields, I can just use the kill expression. So it can be from Django dot models import kill. So there is this option here. There is it's not Django DB rather. Yeah. So there is this option here in which you can import the kill expression, and then you can use the kill expression to define our expression, right? So it's going to be kill. So we want to search across multiple fields. So what we want to do is that once the user type in something, you want to search across, let's say, the hospital name, and then I'll say I contains the query, right? Or we also want to search the same thing, so query expressions, then I want to search hospital. We want to be able to search for, if I come back here, we can search the facility, the hospital name. We also want to search for the city town, right, to be able to search here. So either we are searching for the hospital name or the city town to find the hospital, because sometimes hospitals have their names with the name of the city. So it's going to be something like this: hospital I contains, right? I contains means case insensitive, then query. So this is one way. So we have created a simple query from which we can search multiple stuff, and then whatever is going to be returned right, so something like this. So once everything has been returned, we can now return it like this. So return, we can just return it like this, right? Hospitals. So I save it, and then let's refresh. So we have the list endpoint, so we have the search endpoint, and then I can pass in the value. So let's say I want to search for something like New York, and this is going to search across two fields, right, and return the data. Right, so we have New York here and then New York here. Perfect. In case I go with new, because it is I contains, it is also going to return the data that is required, right? So we have New York. Perfect. So that is how to do multiple search across multiple fields using Django Ninja. Then we can also do another one in case you want to add filter search, right? So how do you do filter search? So to do filter search, you can just do the same thing. So def, then let's go to find hospital. Then I want to, because I want to search across multiple fields, with this is only just returning query, but I want to have multiple fields I can select from. I can just go with the same thing I did here. So request, then I'll pass in my filters, but we need to create the filters. So I'll go to my schema here, then I will import my filter schema, then I'll define my schema. So I'll call this class hospital filter schema, right? Something like that. And I'll pass in my filter schema here, and the filter schema is going to specify. From here you can specify what you want to do. Do you want to, which fields do you want to filter, right? Which fields do you want to search data from? So we can just go back here and say, okay, I want to get my city town. Then I'll specify, so optional, we need to import this one from typings, and then a string. By default it's none because this is not required. And then we can just come back here from typing, import optional. And then we also need to import fields from Django Ninja, and I can also specify, okay, hospital name is going to be optional, this is going to be string, and then this is going to be none. So now we will have two fields. So hospital, we have two fields that we can see here, and then I'll just go back again. Let's import it from my API. Importing it into my API, so here, and then I'll use it here, right? So I'll pass in my filter here. So filter, we need to pass in the filter in order to be able to get it. So filters, it's going to be the hospital filter that we have, schema. Then this will go with the query, which I have to import, and then the splat to be able to get everything that is coming. So I need to import this one from Ninja query. Perfect. Yeah, so we have the filter, we have the schema. It's supposed to be this. Type in. Perfect. And now I can go with my hospitals. So it takes in the hospitals, the entire object, because we are filtering all of them. Then we just go with my hospitals. It's going to be my filters dot filter, right? Then I pass in the hospital object. Then now I can return the hospital. So we need to decorate this our endpoint to app.get, and then we can just do the same thing. So hospitals slash, let's go to find, and then we need to specify the response. So let's go with the response, and most of the time it is a list of hospitals that we are searching for. So this is how to add multiple fields to search using Django Ninja with filters. And if I go back here and I check it out, you can see that we have, if I go to my find, I have the home, this the city, town, and then the hospital. So I can search each of them, right? So I can search for, let's say Berlin, in case there is something like that. And if I click on execute, you can see the query construction, right? It has created it and there's nothing there. I can also search for another hospital. So let's go to New York. Right, there's nothing there, right? So we are just searching these two things and it doesn't work. So I think it's supposed to be this. If I go with this now, right, so that is one way we can actually search across multiple fields, right, using this option here. You can also modify this filter and then add some features to it. So in case you want to specify where you want to search from, so like for example, this is normal. In case I want to modify the field to search multiple stuff, I can just go with the field and then I'll just go with none. Then the kill, all of this is constructed as kill expressions. So I'll just go with this option. So hospitals, then I'll go with hospital name. Let's say start. You can just put your Django kill expression query here, right? This is in case you want to customize the field, right? So if I save it now, it's going to just search if it starts with that particular name. So if I go back here and I refresh, now I can just check if it starts with N. If I go with N, so it's failing because it's supposed to be starts with, not start with S. If I refresh it and then let's try it again. So if I go with, say, new, can you hear some sound behind? I think it's very early here. You can say we have my result. Perfect, right? So it's working. So this is how to customize the filter with Django, right? With Django Ninja filter schema. Okay, so let's see some other stuff. We have gone through most of the stuff. So create, read, update, delete. We have done with a lot of the search. Now let's see how to upload. How do you upload data, right? So in case you have some data and you want to upload it, how do you do that, right? It's also important at the urgent version. So to do an upload, all you need is just def upload is upload. Then I'll pass in my request. Now I need to specify my file and I need to import my upload file. So this upload file is a class we need to import from Django. So upload file, and there is also file, right? Then I'll just come down here. So upload file. Then I'll specify that I want to be able to upload a file. And here you can specify your different things. Then now I can just go with my data. going to be file.read. So in case the file is a txt file, you read the data, and then you can now return. Let's say I want to return the name of the file. It's going to be file.name, and then in case I have some data on it I want to return, I can also return it. So let's say data is going to be the data that is coming, right? So let's call this as file name, right? Perfect. And this has already been uploaded, so I think it's uploaded file, not upload file, right? That's why it's failing. Then I can, most of the time upload is a post method, so app.post, and then here I'll just pass in my path. So let's save it, and if I refresh, we have my upload endpoint, and I can upload automatically. It's going to create all of them for us. Then if I open it, I can try it out in case I have some file. So let's see if I have some file on my desktop that I can upload. So I have something like this song, and if I run it, that everything is working. It's failing because of serialization error, but I have to do this. If I go with, let's say, the length of the data, let's say this is going to be the length, and then if I execute again, so now we have it working, right? So we have the text file and then the length, right? You can actually modify it as you wish. So this is how to work with upload endpoint. Now, how do you secure the endpoint, right? So how do you work on security? How do you add some security to the endpoint? So there are several ways you can do that. So the first one is that you can do an API security or header security. So to do that, just go back to your application here and just go from Ninja. We want to work on the security, so it's going to be .security, then import my API. So there's API key query, API cookie, basic API, but what we need is, can do HTTP basic authentication, bearer authentication, and the rest, but we are using the query, API key query. And then I will define the API key, right, for security. So if the person doesn't have the key, he cannot visit that part of the endpoint. So I'll just create my class. I'll call this API key. Then it inherits from the API key query. Then I will specify the param I want to use. So the param I'm going to use is, let's say, the person must have specified the API key. This is similar to doing something like this. So whatever the endpoint, right, and then the person must do so API key, then some value, so some key, right, something like this. So this is what we are trying to do. So that is the name here, right? Then I can create my function to authenticate, and this function is going to take in my valid keys. So let's make it very simple. In theory, in practice, this authentication function may be talking to a database, right? So yeah, but we are just going with this option here. So valid keys, and then I'll say, okay, this is going to be key 1, so key 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, right? Some keys. So this you have to replace with, let's say, valid API keys, or let's say DB credentials, something like that. That you check, right? Then, so if the key in my valid keys return the key, let's go to that particular key. But else, we want to, if it's not valid, return none, right? So if it's not valid, so this is a simple function we have created to be used for authentication, right? So once you are done with that, what we need to do is now we need to initialize the tier. So API key. I need to initialize that class. Perfect. And now I can just go back and then apply. If I go back here, I can apply it globally, or I can, let's say, put it on a particular endpoint. So let's say I want to put it on the hospitals endpoint. So I'll just go back here, the list of hospitals, and I'll just pass in my auth, then I'll pass in my API key. If I do it like this and I save, that endpoint, you see that I have the authorized here, and this endpoint is locked, right? So I need to pass in, if I run this option here, it's going to fail. It's going to tell me that, okay, unauthorized, I need a key. So I have to first of all unlock it, and then I'll pass in, let's say, key. So key 1, 2, 3, something like this. Authorize, then it's locked. I mean, it's unlocked. And now if I run it, that is failing because I think the key is not valid. So let's see the key we used. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So there was 4 there. Or I can just take it off to save us time. And then if I execute, now it's working, right? So you see that it went to the endpoint and it added this to it, right? So this is how the key works, right? Perfect. Okay, so that is how to make your endpoint secure by adding key to singular endpoint, or you can also make it globally for everything. The other thing we can also do that in case we want to avoid DDoS attack, want to add throttling to our endpoint. How do we add throttling to it? So to add throttling, there are 2 types of throttling. Let's go back here. You have rate limiting. It can be authenticated or unauthenticated. So let's see how to do that in Django Ninja. So I'll just come down here from Ninja .files. I want to import not file, but from Ninja throttling, I want to import my unknown rate. So there's unknown rates, there is user rates, auth rates, but we just go with the unknown rate. Then I'll come down. Let's say I want to specify a particular endpoint I want to encrypt, right? Or to put rate limiting on. I can also do that. Which is very important, right? So this is useful in a form of security to keep your endpoint protected a little from DDoS attack. So for example, like let's go with this endpoint, right? I want to add some rate limiting to it. So all I need to do is that inside here, I'll just go with my rate limiting, right? So which is going to be the one I imported. And then I can specify throttling. So here there is throttle. I can spell throttle. So we don't put it inside the function, we put it here, the response, right? So throttle, and then I'll specify that I want to, you can have multiple strategies. So I can just go with unknown, and then the rest, and then I'll specify how many times. So 1 request per second, right? So only just 1. So if it's more than that, it's always going to fail. So if I come down here to this endpoint, which is here, and then I pass in, let's say, number 1, see that it did work, right? But if I keep on doing it, let's reduce it. See that too many requests, right? You see that too many requests is shown here, right? So that is how to add rate limiting. All you have to do is just import and then add it. You can make it 10, and then if you do it more than 10 times or 5 requests per second, if I go back with this, so you're going to see that it's going to show it, right? Yeah, 5 requests per second, but I'm not as fast as that. Okay, so that is something that you can also do, right, with the rate limited. Okay. Then the final stuff you can also do is that we can modify a lot of things, add a lot of things as you wish to it, right? So this is some of the basics of working with Django Ninja. We have seen how to create our CRUD endpoint, so create, read, update, delete with Django Ninja. We have also seen how to work with upload, so we have, and how to add security measures like API key security, and then how to add, in which you add it here, right? And how to add throttling to secure it. We have seen how to do update, delete, how to create search filter, and then also how to upload, right? You can also work on the download also later. And in case you want to see the query that was happening here, you can also do see all the queries, right? The actual query that was written. So in case I want to do that, I can just come back here and do print. Let's go with my filters, so that you can actually modify. So get filter expression, and it is going to return the particular query expression, the query expression that was used. So if I go back here, and then let's position side by side here, and this is the find endpoint. If I go back to the find endpoint, which is here, and I type in something like, say, new. So let's do it here. If I go back here, you can see the expression that was sent, right? So end, so this is the expression that was created using key expression, and you can modify it as you wish, right? And add it to it. You can even change this one from end to all in the filter expression for the filter schema here, right? So that is something I want to share with you. I hope you have learned something. You can also modify these ones. So in case you also want to create computed fields inside here, right? So let's say I want to get the city or something, I can also come down here and then create computed field. So let's say I want to get the, say, facility, or let's say I want to get the hospital name, so hospital, or call it as name, right? I can just go with my string, then field, which I have to import from above, which I have already. Then I can specify an alias, so alias, and then this alias is going to be the name, so it's a get name, right? Okay, this is similar to, this is a read-only property, so read-only, similar to this is similar to, let's say, serializer method, right? So this serializer method field in Django, right? Serializer, Django based framework, and then I can now define it here. So def, so let's say get name, then I will just pass in, or think object, and then I'll just pass in the name, so the model return object dot, say, hospital name, right? So you can actually do something like this. So if I go back to here and I refresh, so it's failing, so I have to just modify it, right? So this is one way you can also do that. It's missing something. Very funny, right? So this is one of the ways you can actually specify an alias and modify it. Okay, you can check the docs for it. So thank you for watching the tutorial. In case you have any question or contribution, you can put it in the comment section below, and then see you another time. Stay blessed. Bye. Jesus says.